Good evening everybody. So tonight we're doing a ring tutorial. You can use 0.8mm wire for the base. I guess you could use 1mm thick as well if you want to. It would just make the band a bit chunkier. You can also use 0.3 or 0.4 for the wire wrapping, and I would suggest either 2 or 3mm. So these are the 3mm bicones. I've got a couple of strands left of those. These are the silver small crystal rondelles, and I've got about 3 strands of those left, and all of the wires are available as well. You will need your mandrel, and let's get a little bit of wire. What I'd suggest, have a pencil at hand if it's a wooden mandrel. You can either use a ring sizer to get your size, or you can pop it on the mandrel and just draw a line. I've tried to scrub out all of these extra lines, about 1mm underneath, so that just allows for the circumference that's taken up by the wire wrapping in the inside. So that's first step. You can actually work straight from the reel if you want to, and I'm going to pop that on there. What you could always do is you could always use some masking tape just to secure it down whilst you're working, and then I am going to bring it round. 1, 2. So effectively you've got 4 wraps at the top, you've got 3 full wraps at the back and 4 at the front. So what I'd recommend you do is, if I just cut it and I show you, so you want the back clear so that you've got 3 just clean full wraps, and then I've actually got a tail there and a tail there. I'm just going to cut that one down a wee bit. You basically want the tails around about the length of what the crystals are going to be, but it's about 2 centimeters from one to the other. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's take that off for now. So it looks a bit like a spiral. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to use 0.4mm wire. Now what you need to do is you need to make sure that when you're wrapping this one that you catch both the tails in each end. Whether you're left or right-handed, do whatever works for you. Non-dominant hand has a tail, so I've got about 1 inch tail. I'm going to pinch those wires together, and I'm actually going to wire wrap close to where the first tail is, and I'm still holding that tail. I'm just going to do 2 wire wraps just to secure it first of all. Okay, make that nice and taut, and the 0.4mm is just a little bit sturdier for doing this because it keeps hold of that tail underneath. Now I am going to use my 3mm bicones, so I popped a bicone on there, and I'm going to lay that across the top of the ring, and then I'm going to bring it under so it secures it, and then I'm going to do 1 full wrap on the top. It doesn't matter if you're wrapping the other way. Does that make sense? So at the moment I'm doing clockwise, but if it's more comfortable to do anti-clockwise, that is fine too. I've got another bead on there. So there we go. You can just see that tail in the bottom there. Again, go through the ring to anchor it, and then do 1 full anchor after it. I would suggest that you have anything between 3 and 5 beads. The other thing you could use, I've just bought some garnets. I love garnets, and they're 2/3mm beads, and I thought those would look really lovely on top of the ring. I suppose you could even experiment with 4mm. It'll just be the fact that it's a little bit higher on top of the ring. But do ask any questions, and if you can see any way of varying it, or another style pops into your head whilst you're doing this, do let me know, because we always like to bounce our ideas off each other. That I've still got quite an overlap there, so I'm just going to trim that down a little bit. So you've still got enough space for that bead to go on top of it. One, two, three, four. There we go. 5th bead. And then just make sure that you catch that tail underneath the wire. Okay, so that's that done. Now we're going to trim off our tails. So to do that, always have the flat part of your pliers against where you're working. Have a couple of mils sticking up so that you've got something to actually flatten down. Always make sure you cut on the top, not the bottom, because you don't want any loose wires basically sticking into your finger. You haven't got any hammer or an adjustable mandrel, but you've got something to wrap it round. You might find that that gives it enough shape. However, it always works better if you can hammer around the mandrel, because what it does is it work hardens the wire. Now it's the same both sides, it's just different colour, it's just cosmetic in terms of the colour. So we're going to hammer this. Be careful not to hammer the crystals, and what that does is, because it's a copper based wire, when you hammer it makes the wire more solid. And I'm going to take that off, pop that back down there. So there we are. Looks a bit like an engagement ring, doesn't it? Doesn't fit that one, but it fits that one. So there you are, very comfortable. You've wire wrapped all of those ends so there's no loose ends sticking in, and that's what we've got this side, which looks a little bit more spaced out than it is because it's so close up, but that's really comfortable. So my recommendation is, for that method, is to actually use 0.4mm wire for the wrapping and 0.8 for the band itself. I'm going to show you another one in case A, you've only got 0.3mm wire, and B, if you find that the edges keep slipping out. What we will do is we will do this one next, and what I've done is I've used a finer wire for this, 0.3 to wire wrap, and I've actually done some wire wrapping at the start and at the end as well. But you can see how quick they are, and if you're new to making rings, this is such a lovely little thing to do. And also, if you've got a craft fair, how quick is that? I mean, you could make it for people while they're there, couldn't you? So there we are, we've got the tail under our finger, and if you find that it comes up a bit big every time, then just make it a bit smaller next time, you know, i.e. a bit further up the mandrel. So I've got 3 full wraps at the back, and for the distance of where the beads are going to be, we'll have an overlap. So we've got an overlap there and there. So at some part of that you will see 4 wires, but at the back you'll only see 3. You can hammer at this stage if you want to. So there we go, that's what we've got. So we've got a tail underneath in our going to clamp underneath in our non-dominant hand, and then we're going to go up from the back, and we are going to, so we've put a full wrap round number 1, and then we're going to do a full wrap round wires 1 and 2. Pull it nice and tight, and then we're going to go up the back of 3. This is why I'm using 0.3, because it's so much easier and neater to work with. Then we are going to go up the back and do a wire wrap round all of them. And I'm just going to shimmy that along a little bit, just so that it's closer to that edge. Is just squeeze that, just secure that a bit more. Hopefully I got that all on camera. You see that? If I just turn it at different angles, and then we will actually carry on as we did before. So we've got 1, and then we're going to go under and do 1 full wrap in between. So holding that, going through the back, and do 1 full wrap. I'm just going to have 3 on there this time. The 3rd one, go round, and right, I'm going to turn that work round over just number 1. Just need to separate that a little bit, make sure I'm on camera. It gets a bit more difficult this end because you've pulled it tight and there's not really much of a gap to work with. Then I'm going to go over 1 and 2, and then I'm going to go over 1, 2 and 3. So what I would suggest is the first one is by far the quickest, but until you try it and see how you find it, you might want to try the others depending on whether or not you find that your wire slides out. And by wire sliding out, I mean these little end parts here, and then we've got the full wrap. Gosh, this looks minute. There we go. And then, sorry, going off camera again. Right, just squeeze that. And you might need to do a little bit of tidying up, because as you're wire weaving, you may find that your beads have moved slightly, and this is what can happen with the wire wrapping, is this one, this end has come slightly out of place, and this is why you might find that the next one works a bit better for you. But you can get it back in place, you just need a little bit of time and patience with it. I don't think it looks quite as neat as the other one. And then what we're going to, can I use 0.5 wire? Lydia, it's like anything. I always say, use what you've got, have a go. But if you find that it's really difficult and it looks a bit messy, you might want to go down to a lower gauge. Is a lower gauge right? Higher gauge, isn't it? Smaller the higher the gauge, the smaller it is. So that's that one, and you've just got the wire wrapping on the end and those little crystal rondelles. So it's tiny, it does fit. So that's that one. That's that one. Do you know these could be stackable as well? Thinking about it. Right, shall I show you my last one? And this is the other one, okay? What I've done is a loop that end and a loop that end. So this is the third option. So one, what we could do, let's do one with just the 2 full wraps this time. I've got wires here and one here, and you need to allow for the turning as well. So what I did on this one is just turned a little loop at the end like so, and actually pop that on the top. And we can go back to using our 0.4 wire for this one. We're going to have a tail underneath, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch under your non-dominant hand, and we're going to push that under so that it encompasses all of those wires, and we're just going to do a second loop on there as well, or a wire wrap I should say, rather than a loop, because it's not a loop. There we go. Now, don't think I'm going to fit all 5 on there. So that's the other thing to bear in mind, is you want to cut enough wire for you to cover the crystals where the overlaps appear. The other problem you might find is sometimes you get overlapping, you know, one wire overlaps the other, but what you want to do is you want to keep them nice and flat against each other. So I'm going to bring that round. You can still use 0.3 with this one if you want to. Add another one. Lay it on its side. And you might just want to hold it in place with your non-dominant hand. Have I done a full wrap? Yes, I think I have. Okay, and then we're just going to squeeze those up to each other. We're going to trim off the loose tails. So again, like I say, bring up your wire, have a couple of mil so that you can actually lay it flat on the top. Use your chain nose pliers just to bring that over. And then we can do the same with this one. You can make bigger swirls at the end as well if you want to make a bit more of a feature of the swirl. Now let's just lift that up. Now I've got that going this way. You can either have it to match, but I prefer it to go the other way. If you find that perhaps the loops don't match, you can always trim one of them down as well. And then we're going to pop it on the mandrel, and then we're just going to hammer that. And so you've just got those tiny little loops, but what it does do is it gives you that extra peace of mind that none of these wraps are going to come off their hinges, so to speak, there. But I must admit, I do like the smoothness of this one. And like I say, you could have stackable rings. You could always have, like on one bead this side, and then on the next one in the middle, and then the next moved up. You know, it's just food for thought, isn't it? But with there not being a great deal of bulk with these, you could easily wear multiple ones. Experiment with different gemstones or beads. Yeah, experiment with different beads. Try some of the gemstones, try some crystals, try different shapes, see how you like it. The other thing I'd suggest as well, particularly as they're so quick, is that if it's for a gift, if it's for selling on a craft fair, if it's for yourself, buy yourself some sterling silver wire. You can order it from either Crooks and Gold, it's based in the Jewellery Quarter, or Palmer Metals. If you are ordering wire for this project, you can order the exact length you want, so you've got no wastage, so you can always measure and roughly work out how many for 1, 2, 3, or how many ever rings. The other thing to remember as well is the type of wire that you need to order if you're ordering sterling. What you want is it needs to be fully annealed, which means it's soft and it's been heat treated. Secondly, it needs to be fully round, or just round wire. Thirdly, 0.8mm, and obviously 925 if you want the sterling silver. And in the box, if it's with Crooks and Gold, you can just measure centimetres, in metres, in inches, whichever floats your boat. But I would say that that is a really nice straightforward one that you're less likely to make mistakes with if you're relatively new to wire work as well. But I'd say, like anything, have a practice with it. You could even buy gold. I do work with gold sometimes, just for some commission work that I do for rings. I'm not going to lie, it is a little bit scary because, you know, it's an expensive mistake to make. It really is. But I hope you enjoyed it. Let me just try these on and show you. So lots of glitz, and I love the copper. I love the copper as well. You guys take care. Don't forget the supplies are available in the Facebook group.